Hi, everyone. I'm Denise O'Malley and the founder of You Define Wellness. This Defining Wellness confab is brought to you by our company with an intent to share the education and knowledge and expertise of the wonderful people who are in my world and in my network. I want to tell you a little bit about You Define Wellness before we get into our speaker today. Well, we are a network of hundreds of health and wellness professionals in many states. And one of the benefits of them joining our network for you is that we have actually vetted these professionals. We go out and we do a criminal background investigation. We check their licensure. We look for disciplinary actions. We're making sure that they're in business, and we're checking their reputations as well. But that being said, it's always buyer beware, and you always have to do your own due diligence when you're working with someone. And one of the things that we are able to do with this network of providers is come up with products for you to participate to help you defray the costs of going to a practitioner who perhaps is not in your medical insurance plan. And we have an employee benefit program for that. We also have a wellness education library, a catalog of wellness education classes and topics from the experts. So this is great for the workplace and community groups and school groups. So if you have a group looking for a wellness educator, I have people who you can be working with. We also have, starting today, we are launching a product for individuals, retirees, self-employed, those who do not have the employee benefit program in place. And this is the Healthy Living Savings Card. It's a one-time fee to get discounts on products and services from our network of vetted professionals. With a network of health and wellness professionals, we also can do good in the community. And so we are forming the Holistic Healing Workplace Crisis Support Team. So when crisis hits the workplace, we know that the first thing that happens is they're told to bring in the counselors, and that's great. But we also know it's not enough. We know that physical and emotional trauma can reside in the body, and it can come up and crop up and manifest in days, weeks, months, and even years later. And so we're able to bring in a team of professionals to come in and help employees in the workplace. People, yes, like the counselors and the psychologists and the psychotherapists, but also biofeedback, massage therapy, acupuncture, Reiki, energy healing, and so many other things. And one of the things we're using this confab for is to bring awareness of this workplace crisis support team. And we're raising funds to help form this as a nonprofit organization separate from You Define Wellness, but we need financial help in order to make that happen. And I encourage you to go to this event on July 24th where we're talking about this on the Defining Wellness confab. So without further ado, I get to introduce you to my friend Sue Relihan. Sue is with Find Serenity Empowerment, that's the name of her business, and has a fantastic talk on reducing your stress by embracing your shame. So Sue, welcome. I'm thrilled to have you here today, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Denise. It's great to be here, and I just love the work you're doing out in the world.
Thank you.
This new crisis team that you're putting together, there's such a need for it, and just all that you do, I mean, there's hundreds of us that are following you and really just wanting to make sure what you do is successful, because if you are, then we are. So I am going to share my screen. I have a short PowerPoint, which why is it not? Okay, we get to play technical difficulties right off the bat and figure out why my PowerPoint was not on my share screen option. And hopefully it is now. And so there. Do you have my PowerPoint in front of you, Denise? Just shake. Okay, thank you. So actually, before we go into that, I'm going to tell you a little bit about me and who I am and how I show up in the world. As Denise said, I'm Sue Relihan. I own Find Serenity and Empowerment, and I do personal growth coaching at this point. Over the years, I've been actually a massage therapist for 22 years, a hypnotic coach for 7, and I'm in the process of switching everything over to internal family systems therapy and coaching, which we'll get into here more in a little bit. But my passion in life is empowering others to really live the life of their dreams. And as I was looking for a topic for this presentation, there's such an issue right now with stress in our world. And there's so many people that are just stressed day by day by day. And as I was looking at the stressors that I see coming through my practice and through my circle of influence, there's this underlying place of shame. And these are not like the big shaming things, but just those little white lies. So that's why I'm doing this presentation on you can actually reduce stress substantially by embracing your shame. And so these are actually dictionary definitions. Shame is the painful feeling or experience of believing that we are flawed because of something we have experienced and are therefore feeling unworthy. And there's so many people I'm coming across have this underlying feeling of being unworthy or unacceptable, either for a very long time or because of some action that they've taken in life, and they just haven't quite made peace with it. And whenever there's that just underlying foundation of shame in our psyches, it really starts to add up with our stress. And then the definition of stress that I found, I think this is Webster's, our body's way of responding to any kind of demand. It can be caused by both good and bad experiences. When we feel stressed by something going on around us, our bodies react by releasing chemicals into the blood. So, and it's important to know stress can be good. So, like just before I got on this call today, I was telling Denise, I went and I could tell my stress level is up. It's a level of me getting excited. I want to be able to have good energy. And I was trying to put my earring in, and it was like just this impossible task. And I had to stop and like calm myself down for a minute and go, okay, some of this stress is good. Some of this stress isn't as good. And I was able to like diverge the two, take a deep breath. Obviously, I got the earring in and all is well. But other stress can be incapacitating. I mean, there can be, the stress level hits so high, and my own story, and I'll get into that a little bit here in a minute, my shame level was so high that my stress level was exponential. And I actually landed in the hospital in ICU, not knowing like how to keep going. And that was a big turning point for me in my life. And so I love to intercede before stress gets to that level with people. So oftentimes it's little white lies that lead and really compound our stress. And these are things that we normally don't say out loud and we don't talk about socially. Very rarely do you sit down at a party somewhere and go, oh, look, these are my shame factors. So the first one is sometimes we're afraid we're going to hurt someone, so we lie. And I mean, a common one, and it happens with women all the time, oh, I love your new hairstyle. But to yourself, you're like, did you really mean to go pink, green, and purple? But it's just that little lie. And it's innocent in its intent, but the more we do those little lies, the more they build up. And other times, we don't want to face the consequences of our actions. And so, I don't know, for me, there's just been so many times where I'll be like, oh no, I didn't do that. I didn't forget your birthday. I tried to call you. That's a lie. It's not, because we don't want the other person to be upset with us because of what we had done. And sometimes we want something and we're afraid we aren't going to get it if we tell the truth. So on most job applications, there's a question that says, have you ever stolen property? Now, most of us, we're not thinking about pens and paper clips and those things that just wander their way home with us at the end of a day. But technically, that is something that can be considered stealing. I mean, again, this is looking at the different levels of things. But the biggest thing with this particular type of shame is that we really don't intend to hurt anyone, especially ourselves. But as they add up, we do hurt ourselves. So I found some images, and I don't know about you guys, but I am so guilty of this particular lie. Somebody calls and says, oh, I need to do something, or can you pick me up, or can you get up at 6:30 tomorrow morning and take me to the airport? And my automatic response is, oh, I'd be happy to. And my system is like, what are you doing? We barely have the energy to get out of bed. What are you committing to? And again, it has to do with that not wanting to let somebody else down. And then now that Netflix has that auto episode reloader, I mean, I know I'm guilty of this. I'll be watching one of those TV shows, and Netflix, like I think happens to so many of us, and whether it's Netflix or Hulu or any of the other providers, get caught up. And it's a fabulous distractor in moderation, like everything in the world. But when it auto loads, it's like, oh, and TV's gotten so good at putting those hooks and those anchors in. It's like, I just want to see a little bit more. And the next thing I know, I've watched 4 episodes, and my alarm's going to be going off in 5 hours. And it's just that this is one of those little white lies I tell myself. And then this one. People see us and they're like, are you okay? Oh, I'm fine. Really, everything's good. Or you'll be walking around just like half dead and be like, is everything okay? Do you need something? Or I'm one of those people, I used to hate asking for help. And even if somebody else offered, like I'd be homesick with the flu, and somebody offered, go get me soup or orange juice or something. And instead of taking up on that offer, which was really what I needed to do, I'd be like, oh, I'm fine. Honest, really. I've got stuff in the cupboards. I'll be good, because I didn't feel like I was worthy of that particular point of help. So reducing your stress is actually worse. I mean, when we lie to ourselves, it's actually worse than lying to someone else, because it erodes our self-confidence. And it just begins to interfere with how we feel about ourselves. And physically, every time I tell one of those little white lies, there's like this hollow sense. And then it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then that shame starts to, and I love those words, seeping down. Because usually, unless it's a big action, shame like this just slowly starts taking its toll. And in the end, we stop liking ourselves. We stop respecting ourselves. And it dims our light. And the next thing we know, we're isolating, and we're not being as active socially. So, in order for me to really talk about shame, I want to share my story. Now, there are 2 pieces of my story. One started in 2009. As I said, my stress level was so high, I landed in ICU down at St. Joseph's. The big catch was the cardiologist said, if your heart stops, do I have your permission to restart it? Without even thinking about what was going on or the significance of what he was asking me. I said, no, because I did. And he looked at me and goes, you don't understand the seriousness. He was right. I didn't. I was completely disconnected from what was going on. And I ended up writing a book about that. I have a book called Metamorphosis, One Woman's Journey to Find Serenity and Empowerment. And I wrote that and released it in 2016, which leads me to the second part of my stress and shame story. The first, from 2009 to 2016, I spent a tremendous amount of time healing and really learning to take care of myself and focused on self-care. And then I wrote my book, and it was an international bestseller on Amazon. Great accolades. But I was not prepared for that success. My self-confidence hadn't grown enough. My self-worth was actually gearing for a fight that didn't happen. And then after I released that book, I actually crawled back into my cocoon. Using the metamorphosis metaphor, I had been emerging from my cocoon. I had been traveling and speaking and socially active and really building a decent platform. Even now, I still have like 4,000 Facebook followers, but I wasn't ready for it. And it took me about a year and a half to really dive in and do the work. And it wasn't until just the last year or so that I began to embrace my own shame. And that really started making a difference for me. Seeing there's two types of shame. One we put on ourselves, and the other that's applied by other people that we can bring on and own. And we take it on as our own. And so for me, so much of my shame has to do with body image, my own issues, my own dissociation from my own body. That was my coping mechanism. And as I've learned to really embrace the core of who I am and accept my protection mechanism, that was when I was able to start changing. And that's what I begin to see with most people, is we need to start looking at relieving our stress and embracing our shame and finding that compatibility between shame and stress. And there is a compatibility there. I know that sounds like an oxymoron, but it's one of so many paradoxes that as we begin to make those connections, we can begin to reconnect with our body, our mind, and our spirit. And we become more present, and we're able to be less distracted. I know for me, and I was much worse about this than I am now, but I could take a 2-hour Facebook dive and look at everybody else's world, looking to see, and doing that, I call it my comparison queen. And my innards were actually, my inner world was comparing itself to what people were putting out socially. And very few people put their true, authentic lives out on social media. They put the things that they're proud of, which is great. I mean, I understand that. But when I'm comparing, I wasn't comparing apples to apples. Another huge benefit is sleeping better. So many of us just do not get enough sleep. And so when our stress level goes down, our sleep gets much better. Our mood goes up. I really was looking at came really close to depression during that last, in like 2016, 2017. My mood was just, oh wow, okay, thank you. And the other piece is being more creative. So there are some techniques that I've learned. One of them, and these all are just really quick, easy to do stress relief techniques. One of them is humming. Just, and I'm not a great hummer out loud, but I love to hum myself. And it's just that vibration shifts our brain chemistry. Another one that I learned is pinched nose breathing, where you actually pinch your nose, hold your breath, and bear down for the count of 5, like you're going to take a bowel movement, but bear down on your tailbone. So it's, and that changes our autonomic nervous system and helps calm us down. Another favorite thing for me, and I use this with my clients if they're super stressed, I use a washcloth with clients. This is a frozen water bottle. I learned a secret several years ago. If I'm going to be driving any distance, 45 minutes to an hour, if I'm heading up north, I get this frozen water bottle and I actually put it back behind my neck and it lowers my stress. And the other thing to do is a guided visualization. And so internal family systems is what has been the most significant, most impactful system I have come across. And IFS believes that we all need to be self-led. And as a self-led person, we create the qualities of calm, clear, connected, compassionate, courageous, confident, creative, and curious. And so before I show this little quick video, because I know I'm running out of time, I just want to use a musical metaphor to describe how subpersonalities work in IFS. The basic idea is that many of us have different parts or different subpersonalities. In the same way that an orchestra has many different musicians, in other words, we're all an orchestra of ourselves. And there's a saying in IFS, it says, all parts are welcome. And I know I had a part that was excited to share IFS today, and also a part that was feeling really nervous about doing a good job. So I simultaneously had an excited part and a nervous part. And we've all got parts. We all have multiple parts of who we are. And so we need a conductor. If we find that inner conductor that can actually help guide the nervous part and the excited part and scared parts and shamed parts, they begin to play a better symphony of music. And all parts are needed. It's kind of like a symphony. You need the trombones and the flutes and the drums. Without them, it's just not as full. But over the course of our lives, our experiences cause our true essence, that inner spirit, inner soul, whatever you want to name it, gets covered over. And we need somebody to help us uncover that. So if you'll indulge me, this is a 2-minute and 45-second video. And I believe I need to...
What is IFS? IFS is Internal Family Systems. What if you knew that everyone has many parts inside, like pieces of a puzzle, each with its own unique qualities? What if you could be mindful and curious and focus on thoughts, images, and feelings without judgment, anger, or fear? What if, when you were blended or absorbed by a sad part, you could separate or unblend and experience a sense of self and feel amazing capacities like calm, curious, and compassion. What if you knew that every possible part that you had, no matter what it seems, has a positive intention, and you could welcome them? What if you realized that so many parts work so hard to protect you from being overwhelmed by parts carrying burdens like low self-esteem, worthlessness, or feeling unlovable, taken in from past experiences? What if you knew you could retrieve parts from memories in the past where they are stuck? What if you could release any burdens your parts took on and be free of them for good? What if you found yourself more present and open-hearted as you got to know and connect with all your parts in a healing way? That would be IFS.
So that's just and I'm just going to do a really quick, there's one quote that I want to make sure I share. That gives you just a really brief introduction to what IFS is. And what I found, and this has been so true for me, especially in the last year, Carl Rogers had it right. The curious paradox is that when I accepted myself just as I am, warts and all, weight, all of the issues that I had so much shame over, then I could change. But it wasn't until I got to that point of acceptance. And I believe Denise is going to probably put up another contact thing for me, but if you go to my website, SueRelihan.com, there's a link on there to do a free 30-minute consultation. I'm not the right fit for everybody. I'm the first person to admit that. I love to have a conversation. I have a lot of resources, or I can send you to Denise's website if my resources don't fit what you're looking for. But really, if you're feeling that stress and you know there's a line of shame underneath it, I would love to have a conversation with you. I have an office in Aurora, an office in Denver, and I do a lot of sessions. Lucky enough, I have clients all over the world. So thank you, Denise, for the opportunity to do this. I truly appreciate you and what you do in the world.
Well, thank you, Sue. And thank you for that as well. I just shared, again, your contact information, but on my screen. And, I had an aha moment while you were talking, and I really appreciate it because sometimes you just need to have those aha moments. And I wrote it down, and I realized that in my life, any shame that I have felt in my life, and let's face it, we all do feel shame from one time to another, it was living up to what I perceived others' expectations were of me. And in many cases, it really wasn't what they were expecting of me. And so it was just a huge aha moment where it was just a release with me. So I want to say thank you for that and giving me that insight. So that's fantastic. So we have another minute or two. Are there any questions? I don't have any in the chat box because you're so thorough and all that. But if anybody who is on the call live wishes to unmute and ask a question, you are more than welcome to. And I'll pause for just a couple seconds if you wanted to unmute. If you don't want to, there is no pressure whatsoever. Okay. So that being said, Sue, thank you for being on this. I think you just scratched the surface, and that was the intent of all of these, is just to get your message out there. And learn more about IFS. You've been talking about it with me. I learned more about it. I understand more about it now with this presentation as well. And so thank you for being on this call with me today. And for all of you who are watching, thank you as well. Sue has a great offer out there. Contact her. No matter where you are in the world, contact her. She can work with you. You share her contact information and just zip back on the rewind and you'll find it there. But thank you for joining us today for this segment of the Defining Wellness Confab. There are a total of 49 of these sessions with 53 experts over an 11-day period of time that we're recording these. So please dive in. And for those who have joined us live, thank you as well. We appreciate you being with us.